Hello, everyone. I received a question about disappointment at work, so I'll go ahead and address that. The person asking was helping a client and had a desired outcome that wasn't met, and so he says, I realize this is no big deal in the grand scheme of things, and that ultimately life is simply unfolding, it is happening, and this is what has happened. Intellectually, I understand this. But interestingly, I still feel disappointment, guilt, shame, frustration, basically suffering. I write this not for sympathy, but wondering if after quotes, getting it, suffering still arises when life doesn't go your way, in air quotes. So Shakespeare said that the Shakespeare quote is, expectation is the root of all heartache. The answer to the question is there still suffering when life doesn't go my way? The answer is no. Let me just start by saying there isn't a my way for it to go. There isn't a, that's just a story. There are this idea of expectations, of an outcome being good or bad. Once the self is realized, it is seen that there is no good or bad. There just is. There's just what's happening. So this notion or idea that life could be going one's way or not going one's way is just a thought. It's just a thought arising. We don't know what's good for us. You don't know what's good for you. You may think that you do. You may want something to happen, but you don't know. That's up to consciousness. What you are is consciousness unfolding and happening. This is what is happening. So whether it's disappointment at work, I should say disappointment is caused by those expectations. So, I read in a book recently that emotion is feeling plus thoughts. So feeling is sensation, those things that are happening, and then thoughts, a story coming up. And then those two combined can create, say, sadness. And in the allowing everything to be as it is means that if sadness arises, then allow it to be. There's a huge misconception that life is really about just chasing happiness, and if that's what's going on, that's also what's happening. But the truth is full acceptance of everything. And that's happiness, sadness, anger, frustration. But suffering comes when there is this thought that arises that it shouldn't be this way, or it should have been a different way. And the truth is, it couldn't have been any other way. That outcome couldn't have been any other way, or that's the way that it would have played out. So there's this programming that's been going on in life that has to do with that can have to do with expectations. If these activities happen, then this other outcome, will take place. And those are just stories, those are just thoughts that this apparent character, if this apparent character wants this thing, takes these actions, then these other things will happen. And that's where I did another video on the law of attraction and the where the law of attraction breaks down is that it starts from this place of this isn't enough, and I want something different. I want something other than what is. And so that desire for some type of outcome in a work environment, having those expectations and then having those expectations not met, is where suffering comes in. This idea that life could be going one's way or not one way is false, because life is always going your way. And that's even that's a story, because you aren't separate. Life is always going, period. It's always going its way. You are life. You are this unfolding, this happening. So there's no opposite to that. There's no way that it couldn't be going in the direction that it's going. And naturally there's freedom and peace in that knowing, in that I hesitate to use the word understanding, because understanding, there's an intellectual component to understanding that's not the true knowing, and even knowing it gets sticky because it's prior to that. Another observation or something that's coming up is, when there are thoughts like it should have been this way, it should have happened this way, there's a discussion sometimes about the power of positive thinking. Like, oh, it didn't happen this way, but hey, look on the bright side. There is no bright side. There is just what is. So whereas someone could and a parent someone, I feel like I have to use air quotes because there's these there are these non-duality nerds that like to correct everything, and they're awesome. I love them. But anyway, I'm just going to talk because it gets silly. This idea, someone, and there's this koan, the farmer's luck, that I did another video on. But when something doesn't happen, you don't win a game, you don't get the promotion, you don't get the girl or the guy or the whatever, and there's this power of positive thinking, like, oh, look on the bright side of it, look at all these other wonderful things that have happened. And that's not what this is. This is full acceptance of outcomes as they arise, because that's what's happening. That's what they are. They happened in a way because they did. Period. So there's a lot of potential, a release of tension that can happen, and maybe not, because there's this feeling that we control the way that we control movements and the way that things work out. And perhaps if I would have done something a little bit differently, or if I would have worked harder, studied harder, visualized harder, that this outcome would have been a different way. And it's just simply not true. That couldn't have existed. It didn't exist. It doesn't exist. What only exists is what's happening right now, period. And sometimes thoughts arise that don't like that at all, that don't like that statement. Find the source. If that's happening, find the source. of where those thoughts are coming from. There's the real answer to actually what's going on here. So if there are feelings of sadness, of disappointment, of anger, frustration, don't shun those. Don't push them away. Don't try to not have them. Don't try to think about the positive side of things. Allow all of those things to happen. That's part of the allowing. And if you don't, that's okay too. It's all allowed. That's the point. It's all one thing. It can't be anything else. So this isn't to say don't get disappointed. It's actually a suggestion or an invitation to look at what is it, who is it that's being disappointed? Where's that disappointment coming from? Where are those thoughts arising from that have expectations? Once that is discovered, once that's truly known and seen, then expectations just dissolve. They can, I guess. I mean, I don't know. That's the best thing about this, is I don't know anything. But expectations have dissolved for this apparent character, as has disappointment. And that's where peace lives. That's where freedom lives, is in full acceptance of everything as it arises. Good, bad, there's no such thing. There's just what is. Thoughts claim differently, and those thoughts are allowed. You can't do any of this wrong. You can't do this incorrectly. No, there's no bad decisions. There's no good decisions. There's just decisions. There's no bad outcomes. There's no good outcomes. There's just apparent outcomes of situations. Thank you for the question. And if you have any other questions, I'll start leaving a link directly to the site. Please ask. I'll either answer you. Sometimes I'll answer directly. In this case, I answered to the person directly, and then made the video, which is why I was looking over here. And I'll as much as I can, I'll do the same. Thank you.